Hello, well I've had a few people ask me actually to talk or say something about leather. And really, so what sort of leather should one use for different craft projects? What are the different types of leather? What sorts of things do you look for when you're buying leather? And what sorts of things should you bear in mind when you're trying to choose leather to perhaps make a knife sheath, an axe cover, a bag, or whatever it might be? So, I will have a little go at a bit of a chat about leather. I think the first thing to say is there are really two main types of leather. There's what's called chrome tanned leather and vegetable tanned leather. Now, the chrome tanned leather is generally cheaper than vegetable tanned leather. It's where the leather has been tanned in chromium salts, normally chromium sulfate. And what it gives you is a leather which can be dyed very easily, that's very good for things like furniture, shoes, and it's fairly cheap to produce. So if you're wanting to make a settee and want a leather cover, it's not a bad choice, or car upholstery, or a pair of shoes. And it, as I say, it comes in all sorts of nice colours. So I mean, you have a lovely colour palette, all these sorts of things. These are just examples of chrome tanned leather. So it really is a great variety of different colours there. I don't actually use very much chrome tanned leather. You have to be a little bit careful if you're making things like tool rolls, because some of it's absolutely fine, it just doesn't seem to react with the tools. Some types do. If it gets wet, then the chromium residues in the leather come out and affect your tools. So you do need to be a little bit careful. I generally find what I call the upholstery type of leathers, chrome tan, they seem to sort of have all the salts worked out. I haven't found that a problem. But I have found it a problem with some of the more slightly rustic, thicker type of chrome tanned leathers. So just a little word of caution there. The leather I mostly use is vegetable tanned leather. Now this is what I say as leather like it used to be. So it's pit tanned leather and it's been tanned with vegetable extracts. And that could be anything really, from tree bark through to leaves, through to other things that have tannin in them naturally occurring, and it can be quite a sort of liquor mix, as they call it, of different substances, but it does produce beautiful leather. And the main distinction I think with a vegetable tanned leather is that you can carve it, you can stamp it, and you can dye it. You have to seal it, of course. So for craft work it's a lovely choice. So for a lot of things like where you're having heavy duty work, like belts, bags, things like knife sheaths, axe covers, vegetable tanned leather's the best choice really. If you're making things like tool rolls, then actually chrome tanned leather isn't bad, and actually for bags as well it's not bad, so take a bit of a choice there. Well, after choosing either chrome tanned or vegetable tanned leather, the next question really is what sort of hide do you want to use? And I think there are probably four main categories. I mean, you could, with all of this, you could go on in huge detail, but to keep things straightforward. So at the sort of thinnest, you've got things like pig. It's very good for lining. It's not bad for little things like wallets as well. It's a nice sort of leather to use and work with. So that's that one. Next one, which I don't really use much of, but it's very good for garments, obviously, is sheep. And it moves nicely, and it's not too heavy, and it's pretty good for clothing. Next up the line is calf, and this is a bit thicker, a bit heavier, lovely and solid stuff, and I use this for bags, and I use quite a lot of this. I love it. It's good stuff. And then the next one going up is cowhide. And this is very strong and thick and heavy, so great for things like axe covers, knife sheaths, and things that need to take a good bit of punishment. But you wouldn't really want to use this for, say, bags, because it would be heavy, it wouldn't flex, but great for things like belts. So yeah, I mainly use calf and cow leather, and I get all mine, it's byproduct of the food industry, so I get it's EEC level, and I know if it's just been a byproduct and the animals have had a reasonable sort of life. So that's the sort of main categories of leather. perhaps I ought to just say a little thing about quality of leather next. So in terms of quality, you'll find if you go to a tannery, most of the time the leather will come in 2 or 3 different quality grades. And you might be thinking, well, hang on a sec, what's the difference? Because you've got sort of the top end quality, which is generally quite expensive, going down to cheaper leather. And there are a few things to look about. Let me just take a bit of calf leather, which I've got here. This is a first grade calf leather. And what you'll get, if it's first grade, it's great for bags. It's basically hasn't got lots of marks and blemishes across its surface. So you can probably get a rough idea of that on camera. I'll try and do a close-up as well in a minute. So a lot of leather, if it's sort of cheap leather, you'll find that it will have tick marks, it will have brand marks, it will have where the animal's rubbed up against a barbed wire fence, and all sorts of blemishes. And that's fine. I mean, for something like a belt, a little bit of that actually gives some character. For things like an axe cover, frankly, it really doesn't matter, because if you're cutting down trees, your axe cover is going to get quite a lot of rough service. So you'd be, in a way, there's no virtue in going for the top quality if you're making axe or knife sheaths particularly, because they're going to get rough service. You can cut out smaller bits of leather from your hide, and so you can pick around where there's sort of imperfections. But if you're making bags, you obviously want a higher quality. The other thing, I mean, just to say, with all leather, even this first grade leather, there are variations across. It's natural, so it's not been rollered or disguised in any way. It's a natural, what's called an aniline leather, and it will have differences, just like if you look at your hand, your actual skin has differences. Well, this has smooth parts, it has rougher parts, it has the grain and the veining on it because it's not been heavily treated. It's a nice natural leather. And that's sometimes so difficult to explain to people because they feel that leather should all look perfect all over because they've got used to seeing machine rollered, chrome tanned leather. But if you're looking at vegetable tanned leather, it will have characteristics across it. But to me, that just sort of gives its beauty, its naturalness about it. You'll find with the higher quality leathers, they're also smoother on the back, on the flesh side. So you've got the grain side, which is the top surface, the one you show, the flesh side, the inside skin surface. And if it's cheap leather, it will probably be more hairy on the back. If it's refined, better quality leather, it will be a bit sort of finer and smoother on the inside. I think really with leather, selecting the quality, it really depends what you want it for, because if you're doing, as I say, small items, you can cut around, it's not so critical. So perhaps in a minute I'll show you a hide which I've got, which is a second quality in calf, and you'll see what I mean. Let's do that. So this is a second quality calf leather hide, and it's fine if you're making smaller items, but you wouldn't want to use this for bag making, because here you see you've got what is probably something like a barbed wire strike. Got a bit more up here. As you go across the hide, got perhaps a flea bite or something there. There'll be bits of pronounced veining. I mean, this is actually a veining. This is actually a still from one of the best tanneries on the planet, but as a second, you can see that it's not uniform all over, so it's a fair bit of variation on there. I'll show you a first quality. So this piece of hide is a first quality, and you'll see there aren't the sort of bites or the sort of barbed wires or the marks in the same way. But it is what's called an aniline leather, so it is a natural vegetable tanned leather, and it will have all the animal's natural skin creases and folds, and it's not been rollered to disguise anything. A lot of leather gets rollered to disguise these sorts of things, but so what you'll get is you'll get areas like here which are smoother, and then you get areas with natural grain. So this is the best quality leather you can probably get at the moment in the UK. It's very nice stuff, but it is natural in its finish. And you'll see on the inside it's fairly nice and smooth as well, a bit like a suede really, on the flesh side. So that's a natural veg tanned first quality calf leather. You can see the sort of variation. I'll show you a bit of chrome tan leather just to show you how it differs to this. Take note of these sorts like creases, and I'll show you some chrome tan next. Now this is a bit of chrome tan leather, and what they've actually done with this, they've actually rolled it to give it like a grain on there. So they've basically enhanced, as they would say, the grain. It does make it more even, so it's a lot more even in its texture. It's got graining all over rather than areas without grain and with grain. So you get this like effect all over. It's not got the sort of blemishes or anything, because they've coloured this leather, so it's not an aniline sort of finish. It's actually got quite a lot of almost like a paint on its surface. It's been very well done, and it is very hard wearing, so this is the kind of leather they would use in a high-end car or in a yacht or something like that, and it's terribly strong and resilient, so it is good leather. It's good for projects. I use a lot of this actually on tool rolls because it seems to work very well for those, and it gives good service. Whatever you're making, it's quite important to consider where the leather has actually come from on the animal, because it does vary across an animal. And I mean, this is a bridle butt, which is a lovely piece of cow leather, and it's got a lovely good straight grain, and it's beautiful, firm, good stuff. I use this for belts, and it's really nice. But I'll show you, I'll do a drawing. I'll attempt to draw a cow, and I'll just talk briefly about the different bits of a cow and where the leather comes from. Okay, so if you think of a cow, I'll attempt to draw a cow. I don't think this is going to be terribly impressive, but never mind, it will give you the general idea. There we are. Right, a couple of legs there, a couple of legs there, and a tail. Right, that's our cow. If you think about it, the leather that you get around the shoulders, because you've got the sort of head moving a lot, it's going to be quite crinkly. So it's actually quite good for things like belts and tool covers, but you do have to watch the crinkles, because sometimes it can be very crinkly. So what I'd generally say is shoulders are best if you're making smaller leather items like axe covers, tool covers, pouches, that sort of thing, because you can cut around. If you've got a particular bit of creasing with the neck, you can cut around it. If you're making belts, the best bit is going to be what's called the butt. It's basically down the back. So it's that sort of area, because you've got a lovely long stretch of leather which hasn't got much in the way of crinkles and ripples on it, because it's going straight down the back of the animal, and it's nice and strong. And I get bridle butts for belts, and they're lovely. The other bit you get is the belly underneath. This is going to be thicker, softer, more stretchy, and have quite a bit of variation on it. I don't tend to use belly, but I mean, you could do small leather goods with it. It'll be cheaper to buy. So in terms of price, the bridle butt is going to be the most expensive, because it's the best bit of leather, basically. Shoulders next in terms of cost, and then the cheapest bit will be the belly. So it's worth thinking about what you're doing in terms of which bit of the animal you actually get your leather from. Shoulders, also size is a factor, because if you're looking at a cow, then your shoulders are very roughly about 12 square foot, which is quite a decent size. You can get a half shoulders, you can get 6 square foot if you just want to do a few knife sheaths or axe covers or something like that. So again, it's worth having a think about what you want. The whole hide on a cow is going to be around about 50 square foot. So, and a side, which I often buy sides, they're about 22, 26 square foot. And then you can pick off the best bits if you buy a side of leather. So anyway, that's my not very good drawing, but I hope that helps explain, think about which part of the animal you get your leather from. I sort of touched on it with leather types from the animals, but you do need to think about the thickness of leather that you want. So people often say to me, oh, what sort of thickness should I get for making, say, an axe cover or something like that? And I mean, in the UK we use millimeters. So I laugh because in the States it's ounces, and it gets a bit confusing for people. I say generally, if you work on a basis that 3mm thick is quite nice for things like axes and knife sheaths and things like that. That in ounces is basically an 8-ounce lever. And I'll confuse you even more now. Very crudely speaking, a 1-ounce lever, which would be the thinnest, lightest bit of leather, would be a 64th of an inch thick. If you take that up, 4 ounces is like a 16th of an inch thick. 8 ounces is an 1/8 of an inch thick. Okay, it's roughly what the thickness is like on an 8-ounce leather if you're in the States. 1/8 of an inch thick, 8-ounce leather, very roughly 3mm. So that's the sort of thickness that's good for that sort of thing. Belts, I use stuff it's roughly 3mm, 3.5, sometimes 4. I actually, when I go shopping for leather, I take a little gauge and I'm able to measure my leather across the hide, partly to test the quality across the whole hide to see if the thickness varies very much, partly to check that I'm getting the right thickness of leather. Now, this leather is beautiful Sedgwick's Bridle Butt. It's a hand carried, absolutely lovely leather that I use on some of my premium belts, and I think it's about 3.5. Yeah, 3.5mm thick. It's very firm, so it's solid, it takes tools well, it holds an edge. It's lovely stuff. But this is particularly expensive leather. You can get Italian bridle butts, which are very nice. I've got some very nice ones of those. They are more reasonable. You're still getting a beautiful leather. And I've got a belt up here. Well, here's a blank. This is a belt done with Italian bridle butt, and it's a lovely firm bit of leather, nice quality. It knocks spots off, frankly, anything you can get in the high street. You're just in a totally different league when you go down these vegetable tanned leathers, and they're lovely. They smell nice. It is leather as it used to be, and I think we'll lose touch with leather. It's a bit like some of the food, the organic movements and things like that, but I think it is similar in a way with leather, but we've got so used to composite leather. People can call leather leather if it's ground up crumbs of leather all glued together. What often happens also, leather is split, so it's like a veneer. They cut it with a very sharp knife the whole way down in the factory, and you can get 2 sheets of leather out of the one hide, and the top grain, the best bit, you can sell off at a premium price. The lower bit, it just becomes a leather. It is leather. It's called a leather split. It's not very nice quality, and personally I wouldn't want to use it, but it is leather. It is used a lot. It's often has treatments put on it, and it can be legitimately sold as leather. But it is a matter of sort of thinking about, do you want a full grain leather like this? So you've got your top layer, you've got your skin layer, you've got your full thickness of the leather here. It is lovely, strong, solid, beautiful stuff, which I enjoy working with. Anyway, I hope I've sort of given you a bit of a feel, and I haven't presented so many things about leather to confuse the situation, but basically think about what sort of project you want to do as to what sort of type of leather you need to have. And I think for probably a lot of people watching my channel, it will be making tool covers, knife sheaths, axe covers, and it's probably, you're looking at veg tan cowhide in the main, and about 3mm thick is best steer I'd give for that. If you want to do things like bags and pouches, consider the calf leather, and that's obviously thinner, more supple, very nice. And if you want to do sort of decorative fashion items, or perhaps even the odd tool roll, some of the chrome tan upholstery type leathers are very good for that, and they're cheerful. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Any questions below? Bye bye.